Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we've decided to talk about this evening. And I'm smiling again because I'm blowing my canned speech.
Oh.
I love to do it that way. Anyhow, the title of this evening's show is What's Important on July 9, 2018. And there's so many things important, but Jeff Strang, my guest this evening, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Don.
Oh, always does a good job about figuring out what's important and what's going to be of interest for us to talk about. He's a fellow humanist, the Humanist of Greater Portland member. Been knowing him for a number of years, and he does a lot of activities for the organization. We meet once a week on Sunday mornings like regular church folk. But being humanist, I'm not sure we're regular church folk. We're regular some things, but not.
Right. I try not to attend too religiously.
Oh, God, it's going to be that kind of show. All right, as you viewers out there know, the show usually goes in two major parts. The first part is what I call the bio part, where I talk to my guests about who they are personally and whatever, so you have an idea where they're coming from when they talk about things in the second half of the show, which will be about what's important on this date. So, you've been on the show before, of course.
Yes.
A number of times, yeah, and I have you on again because you're so engaging.
Oh.
There's other things I can say about you, but I won't say it.
Well, I enjoy engaging with you, too, at the once-a-month open discussions at the Humanists.
You're very good at that.
Thank you. I really enjoy having you be part of that.
Thank you, yeah. You ready for Kumbaya right now? All right. My viewers out there know who I am because periodically I recite the same stuff, which is still interesting to me. That's why I read it over and over again. And then we're going to talk about you, guests' personal stuff is what I call it. If I were to ask your best friend, who is Jeff, what would your best friend say? Be your best friend, first person. Jeff is?
Well, Jeff is a nice guy. He's hardworking and calm for the most part, thoughtful, but likes to have fun. He likes to play music, sometimes African drums and mandolin. He likes to garden and bicycle and walk his little dog, poodle mix named Chico. And he likes to work on his house. He owns a duplex with 3 other people, and that made it affordable. He lives in a nice neighborhood, has lots of friends, and a couple of granddaughters from Ghana.
From Ghana?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. How do you get those?
Well, I've helped a Ghanaian dancer survive in this country since Obo Adi brought him about close to 20 years. And eventually he became a citizen, but because he didn't have good reading and writing skills in English, he's only been able to get minimum wage jobs. So I've helped him a lot over the years, and he calls me his dad, calls my wife his mom, and about 5 years ago we applied to bring his 2 daughters over from Ghana. Mm-hmm. So they came last year. They're ages 20 and 21. Mm-hmm. And they're going to school at PCC and starting to get into the medical track at PCC. So I've got a couple of Ghanaian granddaughters.
You betcha. Are you a tree hugger?
Well, sometimes I wrap my arms around a tree. It feels nice and solid.
Okay. A humanist. Well, when and where were you born?
I was born in southern New Jersey in a town called Vineland. It was called that because in the 19th century there were a lot of grapes grown, but a grape blight hit, and so now it doesn't produce much in the way of grapes, but it's in the part of New Jersey that's got a lot of truck farms, vegetable farms, fruit orchards, and it's a big part of the Garden State in southern New Jersey. That's one reason why they call it the Garden State.
Hello. So when did you leave New Jersey?
I left when I was about 14. My father had worked as a stockbroker for a company out of Philadelphia, and that company got bought out, and he didn't get offered as good of a deal in his job, so he set his sights further afield and found them in Iowa. So we packed up and moved to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So I finished junior high and high school there, and then went to college at Iowa State University in Ames. So I was in Iowa about 10 years. Then joined the Peace Corps, was in Ghana for 2 years, and then
You are a tree hugger, Peace Corps.
I'm a people hugger.
You
More than
betcha.
trees.
You bet, yeah, and it shows, and it's wonderful to be part of when you're doing your open discussion group and whatever. It's always a very enjoyable experience to hang out with you, because I find, because of how you're thinking, how bright you are, I find that it stimulates me and invites me to step up a little bit and show that I'm smart too, but not as smart as you. Not as good looking as you either.
Well, I'm sure you would have been hanging in there more when you were 20 years younger.
Just don't go back that far. Columbus is going to be right close behind you. Anything significant about your racial, national, or cultural heritage that may be of interest to the viewers?
Well, kind of white bread upbringing. Grandparents were from Europe, European descent. Most recent immigrant among my ancestors was my grandfather from Italy, from northern Italy. But I really credit my father with being gregarious and feeling that people, no matter what their race or culture, were to be respected. And so I carried that forward, and so I'm, for example, involved in the local NAACP, involved in an economic nonprofit that is trying to make sure people that live in poverty don't continue to be in poverty for generations.
And how long have you been this way?
Oh, just kind of an evolution of my life over the decades, but I think I just tried to keep learning and meeting people, and I like different languages, people from different parts of the world.
Peace Corps, huh?
Peace Corps.
Your dad's influence was important in you developing that way?
That's right. So he worked for a time as a janitor, and so knew hard work and menial labor, physical labor, and respected people if they were hardworking and also doing menial labor. And I recognize that I've had some privileges. I grew up in a middle-class family that could afford to send me to college, and so I appreciate that and try to help other people raise up in the economic ladder to get better opportunities.
Trying to figure out how you got to be the way that you are, considering your leftist leanings or progressive socialist views.
Well, I did break from my ancestral family in that I'm not a Christian. And
were you ever a Christian?
I don't consider myself ever being a Christian. No, I never really fell for the line. I had to go to Sunday school until high school, and I had to go to church until the end of high school.
What kind of church did you go to?
I went to Presbyterian and a few years to the Baptist church.
Shopping around?
Well, my parents would shop around a little bit. I didn't do that. I just was made to go to Sunday school or church, but it never really stuck with me. One thing that I really connected with when I was in primary school was a book called Facts and Figures. It was a thick book with lots of pictures, and it had information on the planets and dinosaurs and all kinds of scientific facts, and that was kind of like my Bible. I didn't really see a need for the actual Bible.
You better be careful, because some of my Christian friends are going to be unhappy with you if you knock the Bible. What do you think of the Bible?
Well, it's interesting because it's so old, but I don't think it has a lot of application to the current time. Morals are an interesting thing to talk about, and I think that's one nice thing about the Bible. It brings some of these moral questions up front.
And you're talking about the New Testament when you say the Bible, rather than all those other books that comprise the overall Bible.
Well, the whole thing, that it does bring up how people act, whether they're acting rightly or not. It has a lot of stories in it, and it brings up a number of moral questions that are good to talk about.
But the book you were mentioning a few minutes ago gives you more of a grounding or a basis for what you're about in living your life.
Yeah, it's something that I think is more important to study than the Bible. For me, it's a lot more important to study science and how things are, and reality, the nature of reality.
How hardcore are you as a humanist? Are you an atheist, a skeptic, a doubter, or what?
I'm an atheist.
An outright atheist?
Yeah.
Oh. I see myself as a skeptic. I don't know, and neither do you, for example.
Okay.
I'm a recovering Catholic, an altar boy for years. And there's a whole other story about my life and my adventures as a Catholic kid, altar boy and stuff. And stop me, I'd go wandering off of my life again, as you can see now. And where's your dad and mom now?
My father died about 10 years ago, and my mother still lives in Iowa. In fact, I was out there last month celebrating her 88th birthday.
88. Well, how is she?
She's doing pretty well. She just bought a new car.
Wow.
Yeah, she said she'd always wanted a Lincoln Continental, and so she bought a Lincoln Continental about 3 months ago. And she was still getting used to the push-button transmission and the push-button on and off switch.
With all those years behind her, she's got some relearning or adding to her knowledge about those kinds of things.
That's right. She's still exercising her brain.
Yeah, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I have one of each. My sister's in Iowa, my brother's in the Washington, D.C. area.
You contact them fairly often?
Oh, not real often, but every few months or so. My brother just retired. He's younger than I am. I haven't retired yet, but my brother just retired from the U.S. Department of Treasury. He's been there 30 years.
30 years.
And he's giving up the office life, and he's working on fixing up bicycles and cars now, and his house. He wants to work with his hands more.
Are they going to give him any bonuses from the Treasury as a token appreciation of his work?
Well, 30 years, I'm sure he's got
He's
good
paid his
retirement.
dues.
That's right.
Yeah. And you talked about your education, and the last degree you got, was this after Peace Corps or before?
Before Peace Corps, I'd gotten my degrees at Iowa State, and then went off to Ghana. So I got 2 degrees, one in animal ecology and international studies. So 2 majors for that degree, and the second degree was in mathematics.
My gosh, what a confusing combination there. You find that useful in your adult life and your working life, those formal education you took?
Well, I really appreciate all of those. The math was kind of my liberal art. It helped my thinking, and the animal ecology, or basically it was a biology degree, was interesting to learn about science, the biological field. And the international studies was really great because I'm really interested in the rest of the world.
Yeah. You're a personification of kindness. I've known you for a number of years. And it seems like we can go on for some time talking about examples of how you are a kind human being. And to find someone that kind is not terribly common, sad to say.
Really?
Yeah, because I think people are so involved with themselves. And if they were less involved with themselves, they could be more involved with other fellow humans. And perhaps I'm betraying my humanistic tendencies, which I got from Mama, I guess, from before she went away a long, long time ago. Let's talk about your work. You had some interesting careers, and you've still got 1 or 2 going on, right?
Right.
Please talk about them.
Well, when I first came to Portland, I was a VISTA volunteer. So after the Peace Corps, and then moving to Portland, I helped refugees from the Vietnam War adjust to life in Portland through gardening and farming projects. So I met refugees from Laos, and the main people I worked with were Mien and Hmong people. And I made good connections with the Mien people because they were the ones in the farm project. We had a 9-acre piece of land out in Gresham, and we grew things organically and sold to at farmers markets and at the stores that would carry organic produce. And so in those 2 growing seasons, I made strong connections with some Mien families, and they still continue to this day. So we've been going to a lot of weddings recently. The next generation is getting married and having kids, and so that's a lot of fun.
So you did that for a while. That's been...
Yeah, I only did that for a year and a half, but I made lifetime connections. So I consider them part of my family.
What do you mean by connection, human connection? What do you mean by that?
Well, you spend time with people, you help them out when they need help. There have been a lot of traumatic experiences that have happened over time. For example, in 1991, when I was off on a fishing boat as a U.S. government fisheries biologist up in Alaska, my good friend, my two good friends, a father and son, they drowned at the coast. They were fishing off
Coast of
rocks.
Oregon.
Yeah, they were actually just on the Washington side across from Astoria,
Yes.
fishing off the rocks, and a sneaker wave came and took the father out to sea, and the son jumped in to try to save him, and both drowned. So that was a huge traumatic experience. So I cut that job short and came back to Portland and tried to help the family regroup.
Wow. And you still have lingering thoughts and feelings associated with it, huh?
Oh yeah, it was a major event. What was that, 25 years ago? And the son had 7 children. So all these children were very young, under 10, essentially.
Wow.
And so they needed a lot of support. And so now that generation is getting married and getting good jobs, and it's pretty rewarding seeing how they can lift themselves up after such a traumatic experience.
Do they appreciate you, that generation?
Oh yes.
Why do they like you?
Well, I think they see me as Uncle Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm around for a lot of their parties and try to help as much as I can. The trauma of the 2 deaths isn't the only one, and so when trauma hits, then families get together and try to support each other, and so that's my role, part of the family.
So your extended family. I guess you have a plethora of love and people who care about you, probably largely because of how you are and you care about people, and they can sense it. It's in your eyes. Are you spiritual?
No. If you go back to the definition, original definition of spirit, which is spiritus, or breath, from the Latin, I'm a breathing animal, so I do have breath, I do breathe, and that sense, that spiritus, back in Latin, was something that they didn't understand. What made animals breathe and move about? They had no sense of oxygen in the air, and so they had this sense of spiritus, or spirit, as some life force, some supernatural life force that animated animals. And so over time, through the Bible and religion, that concept has been kept. That spirit is something that is a supernatural kind of thing, but it's just breath to me.
Do you think there is a supernatural? You use that term.
No.
Everything is natural?
Yes.
You stumped me. That'll be the day. And I was still listening to you intently, because after all the years, there's still things you say now and then provoke me to think a little more. And perhaps an unusual, not terribly unusual way, you invite me to go a little further with my appreciation of what we're talking about now because of your process. And something that's indefinable now, there's more than what we're aware of in our neocortex and like that. And it's more. I'm not sure what it is or what that really means. But I know that when I am experiencing something that is beyond, I can comprehend right away, I can feel something going on, for want of a better word. I sense it, I smell it, and all of my senses are involved. And as much as my senses are involved in what's going on between you and I, that's spiritual, and maybe that's supernatural.
Well, I would call that natural. You know, we have mirror neurons in our brains that help us read other people and connect emotionally with other people. I'm trying to understand you and your feelings through what I can see in your face and the way you hold your body and your eyes, and you're doing that with me, and we're trying to connect on a deep level.
I'm trying to figure you out. There's something, and I've said this for 3 times so far, about you and what you're about and how I can see or experience you in a different sort of way that's hard to define. I just know I like it, I love it. That's why every Sunday morning when you're leading your discussion group, unless there's something really important going on, I'm going to hang out by you, even if it's just you and I.
Even if you're so tired that you sometimes
Fall
doze off.
asleep. Don't tell the viewers. They think I'm alert and awake all the time. I'm 90 years old in December, for God's sake.
No, Dr. Don sleeps too.
A lot. Now, one of my medications I take because of surgery years ago is an opioid derivative, and part of the side effects of taking this on a regular basis is it tend to be drowsy or sleepy anyhow. But I am constantly watching to see if I'm getting a habit. I've had a lot of bad habits in the past, and I don't want to go to another one right now at this late stage.
No.
So you talked about your children. Yeah.
Grandchildren.
Grandchildren, yes. And your wife is, say a few words about her.
Well, she's a really great person. Her name is Tamara Boyd.
Of course.
And she's a great partner in life. She and I enjoy gardening together and making a home together, and we have one apartment in a duplex, and we enjoy traveling together. The most recent trip we took was to Iowa for my mother's birthday, but the one we took in May was out to southern Utah and the Grand Canyon area.
Oh, yes.
And so had a
Beautiful
wonderful
country.
time out there.
God darn. And did I ask you about your political persuasion? Is there a place we can place you on the political continuum, or how far left are you? A full circle coming around to the right or what?
Well, I consider myself a socialist. I guess I'd call myself a democratic socialist. But I also have a conservative fiscal streak. So I think the tax money should be used wisely and carefully, but that the part of the government's job is to make an economic system that's fair to people, to make more of an even playing field, so people in poverty don't continue to have generational poverty, but they're able to come up out of that poverty. And similarly, that excessively rich people have their wealth and income shaved down. They can still make more than other people, but you can tax it so that the wealth isn't so excessive. I don't think it should be so excessive.
Are you a closet communist?
You might say that.
I can't stop you.
but
I'm
do,
a socialist too, of course.
but I think there's a place for the capitalism. So the way I describe it is, capitalism is a great way to for production and for organizing work and for giving people an incentive to work hard. But capitalism to me is like gasoline. If you have a spark, it can explode if it's not contained. But if you have, for example, an engine, an internal combustion engine that's using that gasoline for doing productive work, that's a better containment for that explosive force of capitalism. And so to me, that containment of capitalism is socialism.
Isn't there some degree of capitalism, as you put it, existing in some of the European democracies or socialist states?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I think some of the Scandinavian countries like Sweden have more of that system. There's a capitalist component, but they've got more of a socialist structure.
So those countries more socialist than capitalist, or the other way around?
Oh, I don't think I could judge that. How much is too much? But I think the Scandinavian countries do more of a better balancing with their capitalism, socialism mix than we do here in the U.S.
They're going to be yelling at me because you're so interesting to talk about anything, but we want to get to what's more important than our personal views for the time being, and we're going to be moving ahead. But a couple of more questions. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, there's a bunch of those you belong to, though, aren't there? Or just a couple that we want to mention?
Yeah, well, the three ones that I not only support with money, but participate in personally are the NAACP, the Common Ground, Oregon, Washington, the economic nonprofit, and the third is Oregon Sustainable Agriculture Land Trust. So around the corner from our house is a 2-lot cooperative community garden. And that 2-lot community garden is in the Oregon Sustainable Agriculture Land Trust system, which has about 10 or 12 properties in the metro area. And the idea is to keep the land in agriculture, in sustainable agriculture. And there are properties in the city, and there are properties in the country. Of course, the properties in the country are bigger pieces of land that are set up more as farms. But the ones in the city are smaller and are set up more as gardens. So the idea is to have them in sustainable agriculture for the benefit of the community, the surrounding community.
How many lists are you on in the federal government in their collection of people to watch out for?
I don't know. I've never tried to find my dossier.
We're gonna. Okay, one more question. Persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or admired or look up to. Any names come to mind for you?
Let's see. Gandhi.
I knew that was coming.
Martin Luther King.
That one too. How about Jesus?
Well, Jesus is so far in the past, I'm not sure as well what kind of person he really was.
Wasn't he a socialist of some sort? Huh? He loved fellow human beings. This is what it was about. I think
He might have been a socialist of some sort, but there's a lot of mist that far back in time, and so it's hard to know exactly what kind of person he was.
Talking about mist, you're going to miss me unless we stop and take a break. We'll come back in a few minutes, guys. Oh, yes, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, you're very lucky to have Jeff Strang, my guest this evening, on Conversations with Dr. Don. Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like Jeff here about who he is as a unique, one-of-a-kind individual, and he is indeed unique. And we've talked about whatever it is we decided to talk about tonight. And what's important on this date, July 9th, 2018. Now, we have some questions here that we can facilitate our discussion for the rest of the hour. We talked a bit about the work you're doing. You're a home inspector and you work with nonprofits. You want to say some more about what you're doing now?
Well, in fact, I just got laid off about 10 days ago from my job at Multnomah County. That's
in Oregon, of course.
That's in Oregon.
Yeah.
I was in a job called Environmental Health Specialist, and I did that job for 8 years. And normally the people in that job are the restaurant inspectors, and they also do hotels and motels and pools. There are some other things they can do too, like septic systems, and so a nice variety of different things environmental health specialists can do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I worked on was housing. So I helped people, especially low-income people, improve the health and safety of their homes. So I would visit people at their homes, houses or apartments or mobile homes, and help them improve the health and safety of their homes for their children with asthma or their children with elevated levels of lead in their blood, or for low-income seniors and disabled, to try to help them stay in their homes longer in a healthier way. So I really enjoyed that work. So it was a bit like a home inspector and a social worker at the same time. But that job was laid off on June 30th, and so now I'm ramping up my side business, which is home inspecting.
And you have a credential for that?
I have a credential for that, right. And my business is called House Geek.
House Geek.
Mm-hmm.
Did you come up with that name?
Yes.
I don't know, people with computers nowadays drive me nuts. It's so far removed. I hate my cell phone. Never mind. You are a born rescuer in a healthy sense, rescuing fellow humans who need the help. My hat's off to you, really, really.
Well, I try, but we also have to take care of ourselves. So there's another one of those balance things. It's like when the oxygen masks come down in an airplane. If they are losing oxygen, you have to put yours on first before you help the child in the seat next to you.
Your metaphors are delightful. What are your passions? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you up in the morning? You got some words here, but I want to hear from the top of your head. What gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning? Well, I look forward to the day for the most part. I guess if I'm sick, I'd want to be in bed. But when I'm healthy, I just want to get up and do things. So I'll often get on the computer in the morning. I get up at 5:30, and there's a lot to do with emails because I'm involved in those, primarily those 3 organizations. So there's a lot to do with keeping the finances or the minutes, trying to continue to grow the organizations and do what needs to be done. And then have to keep in touch with friends and family. I don't do much Facebook. I look at Facebook maybe once a week at the most, very briefly, but mostly what I do is by email. And then I'll do dishes. My self-appointed job is washing dishes. I don't have a dishwasher. I wash by hand. And then get going with my workday. And now that I'm not going to work at the county, I'm just trying to visit realtors and spread my new brochure about House Geek home inspection.
What's your dog doing while you're doing all this?
Well, that's another one of my roles, is walking the dog. So
just walking the dog.
So yeah, I'll walk the dog usually after work, and then another time in the evening before bed. And I also have to change the water at the garden. We have a drip irrigation system, and I'm the closest person to the garden of all of us who work on the community garden. So I change the zone for the drip watering system every day. So I go and do that.
Does the dog ever go with you?
Dog goes with me often, yeah. That'll be our first stop when I take him for a walk.
How old is he?
He's about 12. And a cute little dog, about 12 pounds, 11 pounds. A little poodle mix. And he's definitely a people person.
I would imagine it has to be associated with you. Yeah, so what else can I ask you? Economic justice. What do you mean, economic justice? That's a big concept.
Well, we've been talking about that a little bit. So trying to improve the economic system so it's fairer all around. Like the generational poverty that I mentioned, that's a problem. And one thing that we've been talking about in Multnomah County Environmental Health is the extra burden that poverty puts on people as far as their health goes. So, we're learning, for example, that black mothers have miscarriages and young baby deaths at a much higher rate than whites. And part of it is the stress that they're under in society, and part of that is the economic stress. There's other health effects, people not getting enough to eat, not getting enough resources to go to the doctor when they need to get time off work if they're working menial jobs that they have to commute long distances for. There's a book I read a year ago or so about slack, the importance of having slack in your life. If there's no slack in terms of money or time, then it can put a lot of stress on people and lead to poorer health outcomes.
Wow. Oh, generational poverty, yeah. Say a few words about that, particularly in the black communities. And what about Appalachia? There's generational poverty there
There's
too.
generational poverty there too, yeah.
Wouldn't you attribute that to monopoly capitalism, or the kind of capitalism that's practiced in America, rather than what's going on in many of the Scandinavian countries?
Yeah, monopoly capitalism isn't a good thing, and I think we can harvest more from people with a lot of wealth to spread out so that the people that are desperately poor have resources to take care of themselves and their families.
What do the people with immense wealth think about that? You
Oh,
must
they
be
want
some
to
sort of a
they want to
communist
keep
then.
it, of course. But there's a pretty simple way to harvest wealth so that the structure of everybody in society is kept the same. So if you make if you say make $200,000 a year and I make $50,000 a year, then if we reduce your wealth, we can do it without you losing your position in the ladder. You can still make more than me, but maybe not just as much.
But for people like that, there never is enough. That's the nature of capitalism versus social responsibility and socialism.
That's right. So
you sound like you're leaning toward being a capitalist, are you?
no, I'm leaning towards harvesting that wealth. And yeah, they would object, but hopefully the people in the lower economic part will band together and through the democratic process change the system so that it does tax the wealthy more.
Is the media useful in these kinds of solutions you're talking about to our dilemma about economic injustice and generational poverty?
Oh yeah, the media definitely have a role.
How much of a role does it have?
Well, one of the responsibilities it has is to report on the news, and the people that agitate for major changes can make news.
That'll be the day. You want to watch Free Speech TV or MSNBC?
I mainly just listen to Oregon Public Radio. That's mainly how I get my news and media. I get some of the free papers in Portland. I really like getting the Portland Tribune, the Asian Reporter, the Scanner, the Observer, those free community newspapers.
You probably get more objective reporting. People aren't even aware of what they're missing because they're told what it is that's important to dwell on and use their energy and their thinking and their time, because we are fed, we the population are being fed what's important and what it is we should concentrate on. And the idea is so that we're not paying attention to what's really the cause or causes of our situation, economic situation particularly, so that we have to do something about the media, all media. Herman Goebbels was a hero of mine, propaganda minister.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we got some people now in Washington that are put Herman Goebbels to shame for what they're able to do. And we weren't going to talk about Trump, but I can see in your eyes that you have a soft spot for him.
Well, shouldn't he even be treated kindly?
Don't challenge me. Yeah, luckily there's a second thought. And occasionally, thank goodness, not terribly often, I find I need to calibrate myself and to be sure that I'm walking the talk. Mm-hmm. It's so important to walk the talk.
Well, we can be kind to President Trump, but not like a lot of what he's doing.
You're asking me to make a real tough decision, or have a real objective opinion, because what he's about and how he's affecting generations and so many other things about human welfare and even the survival of the planet, for that matter. I think I need to change things so that we can head off the ultimate final extinction.
Yeah, I've been hearing that he's doing a lot to change the judges in not just the Supreme Court, but other federal courts.
Yeah. Changing
the composition that'll be with us for a generation or two.
Revolution is coming. Bring on the revolution. So let's see, we have a couple minutes left. Spending time with children, why is that important, spending time with children? There are people who spend time with children and do a pretty good job. Shouldn't you allow other people to do that and you be involved in other things?
Well, I've felt for a long, long time that I didn't want to have children of my own, biological children of my own, that I wanted to help with the children already born that need help. And so that's part of it. But also, children are fun to be around, and they help us old folks feel young. So I like being around children.
I could tell by the look on your face, mm-hmm. and the sparkle in your eyes. To make my day, any time of day, is to be in a supermarket, for example, and see particularly a mom or a dad in the checkout line. There's a few moments to be hanging out with what you're seeing going around you, and see the connection between the child, particularly if they're in the arms, or even a 2-year-old, and when there's that indescribable connection between the mom and the baby. There's no words necessary. Mm-hmm. It's just so moving. And even if they're not doing anything, then I like to secretly catch the eye of the baby in mom's arms, and they catch my eye. And I practice just telling them I love you or something like that, put some words to it, and their reaction to it. And the communication is just marvelous. Makes my day.
Have you ever had children be afraid of you because of your beard?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some strange thing. And like someone said that when a stranger comes to the door and baby or dog doesn't want you to go near the door, they've got some other senses working that we're not even aware that we have. So they're smart. They're smart. Another thing is puppies or little dogs riding in the car next to me, and they head out the window and trying to catch all the scents. Those little things that make me smile, I feel warm inside,
Sure.
I need to feel warm inside more. Yeah. And having a few acquaintances or friends like you, sometimes those moments I'm talking about now can rarely be planned ahead of time. They have to be available for them when they occur. Mm-hmm. It makes it all worthwhile, huh?
Right.
Jeff, it's been a delight. So why don't you look at that camera and say something to the viewers? Anything? You got a couple of minutes, a minute or so to say something to them. Anything you want to talk about or say?
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you can be one of Don's guests in the future. Every one of us has something important that we're doing. Every one of us has some worth. And every one of us is interesting. So I would just hope that you could be in the seat here like I am, and let the viewers know what you're up to and what makes you tick.
Thank you again, my friend.
Sure, a pleasure. I'd give you a hug, but we have these microphones on that might be
We'll rip these
disruptive.
suckers off when the cameras are off. Reserve that for a few seconds from now, too. Let's have a few public services announcements, just a couple anyhow. To watch my shows on the web, Google Don Baham YouTube. There's many, many shows on there, interviews, some nearly as good as Jeff, but not quite. And then to learn more about humanists and humanism, go to www.americanhumanist.org, and there's a phone number to learn about humanism. It's really important for those who are not really involved with Christianity and organized religion. One more public service announcement. To learn more about the Alliance for Democracy, go to the national website at thealliancefordemocracy.org and the Portland, Oregon website at www.afd-pdx.org. And to learn more about the American Civil Liberties Union, my favorite organization, go to www.aclu.org. And there's a phone number. Without the ACLU, thank you for watching the show. Remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you too, and especially you in the control room. We will see you next time. Thanks again for watching.